that we intend to proceed with impeachment proceedings if Kristi Noem is not fired.
This is an acknowledgement that what Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino were doing was not acceptable to the Trump administration even.
I still don't understand how she still has her job after she failed to approve search and rescue teams last summer in Texas while Texans were dying.
Well, if Kristi Noem's on her way out, there may be some secondhand ICE cosplay costumes up for grabs. If you're a betting person, well, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's odds of being canned by President Donald Trump have reached an all-time high. The embattled Noem is now listed as having an upwards of 43% chance of being canned as the first cabinet secretary to go. And it becomes all the more possible when you notice this week during a Kiss the Ring roundtable, she was left out in the cold. President Trump pointedly skipped over Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem when going around the room, even though the fact of the conversation should have been about the Department of Homeland Security, and it's the epicenter of the political storm over federal immigration enforcement at the moment. But instead, Trump decided to highlight other topics: housing, the economy, the situation in Venezuela. But he made no mention of Minneapolis or DHS leadership, and did not even allow Noem to address the room when, you know, for a fact, the country needs to hear about this.
Here, but people seem to be upset over the term domestic terrorism. Why do you believe that's appropriate? Because you used it in both cases.
Well, Sean, we're continuing to gather information, and the FBI leading this investigation is important to make sure that we talk about both these situations appropriately. In the Renee Good situation, you know, we have more information as it happened previously, and we'll continue to get to the truth of all of this. But we can't distract from the fact of how we got here. And we got here because we had a Biden administration that allowed an invasion over our southern border and allowed millions of people to come into our country unvetted. And we know for a fact that we had dangerous criminals and drug traffickers, murderers, terrorists, people on the suspected and known terrorist watch list that are in this country that these officers are working so hard to get off of our streets.
This isn't a minor scheduling mishap, right? It's a visible cue that for all the rhetoric about law and order, Trump is increasingly distancing himself from the person most associated with the enforcement operations. Noem's tenure so far has been defined by her aggressive posture on immigration and ICE operations and plenty of photo ops.
Kristi Noem is a complete and total embarrassment. She's a disgrace. And on top of all of that, she's presided over the cold-blooded killings of American citizens, like Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy. Unacceptable. She should have never been confirmed. Shame on every Republican in the Senate who put this wildly unqualified person into a position of significance in the Department of Homeland Security so she could unleash brutalization on everyday Americans, American citizens, and law-abiding immigrant families. It's disgraceful. She's got to go.
She's been the centerpiece of Trump's second-term enforcement push, including high-visibility operations in Minnesota that, of course, as we know, has ended in multiple fatal shootings of U.S. citizens.
Minneapolis.
The White House has labeled the man who was killed in Minnesota as a domestic terrorist. Is that something you agree with? And have you seen any evidence to back up that claim?
When you perpetuate violence against a government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts.
Where's the evidence of his ideology, though?
True evidence of...
And that strategy itself has sparked broad backlash from protests across the country to bipartisan criticism in Congress. And now lawmakers are just outright refusing to fund DHS unless reforms are included. When you look at Trump's strategy, he's already publicly shifted operational control of the Minneapolis enforcement to Tom Homan.
You keep pulling back immigration enforcement agents out of Minnesota.
We want to keep our country safe. We'll do whatever we can to keep our country safe.
So now pulling back?
No, not at all.
No pullback, not at all, he said. That caps a day that began with the president's border czar, a new top official on the ground here, signaling the opposite.
Matter of fact, I have staff from CBP and from ICE working on a drawdown plan. When the violence decreases, we can draw down those resources. But based on the discussions I've had with the governor and the AG, we can start drawing down those resources as far as those looking for public safety threats being released, and do it in the jail with much less people. So the drawdown is going to happen based on these agreements.
He did not promise a drawdown, only to work toward a plan for one. All the same, his boss, the president, just a few words on the red carpet, seems to have put the kibosh on any drawdown, and it came after he spent the day silent on it all, leaving the spotlight entirely to Tom Homan. No parade of cabinet members today singing his praises, and no mention at all of this or his other appearance today of DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, despite what seemed to be a thinly veiled reference from Border Czar Homan to her and the man he replaced, Gregory Bavino.
I mean, that's not something you do if you feel the person who's supposed to be in control is in control. And that's because they're not. It's far from a controlled situation. But the thing is, this is common practice for the commander-in-chief, right? He's all compliments at first, but when the going gets tough, under the bus they go. I mean, the list is so long that Fox News almost had to cut to break that time when they were highlighting all of those officials that Trump had previously labeled with countless compliments, only to then have squabbles with.
In 2016, you said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that.
This
and we
time,
had tremendous, look, we had the best economy we've ever had. The world has ever seen.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second defense secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Kennedy, milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So, why did you hire all of them in the first place?
Got them. We fucking got them.
The thing is, it's strategic, right? By distancing himself from Noem while keeping her on payroll, Trump muddles responsibility, making it harder for any one person to answer for these major policy failures. The thing is, it also strengthens the position of reform advocates, right? Congressional Democrats and some Republicans are now tying DHS funding to enforcement reforms. Senate even blocked a broader budget package over it.
Tom Homan is just like Greg Bavino. Absolutely not. This is an acknowledgement that what Kristi Noem and Greg Bavino were doing was not acceptable to the Trump administration even. And whether that's just because it boiled over because of the public reaction or how they genuinely felt, I don't know. But this is markedly different. And a few things that I jotted down that I think are really positive steps in the right direction. Tom Homan made sure that he acknowledged the fact that mistakes had been made. And he said, I would not be here if everything had been done perfectly. He said, I'm not here for photo ops, so taking his swing at Kristi Noem and Greg Bavino, but to seek solutions, which I think is borne out in the conversations that even Keith Ellison, Mayor Fry, and Tim Walz have mentioned. He says the mission will shift focus to criminals and people with charges. And Reuters is reporting that CPB officers have gotten the memo that they're no longer allowed to engage with agitators. So that means that you won't have an Alex Preddy situation again, hopefully. And he also said that no matter what's going on with the protests, that ICE and CPP must act professionally or they will be dealt with. And that flies right in the face of what J.D. Vance said about these guys having immunity for whatever their actions are. And I know he's tried to walk that back, but everyone remembers that was said originally. So call me a Pollyanna if you want. I think that everyone should be hopeful about where this can go and that maybe those bad hombres can be the ones that are out and we can not see this level of a surge to one of these cities again. And that's where I am today.
By effectively freezing out Kristi Noem at a time when DHS is under intense scrutiny, Trump isn't projecting the unity that he should be. He's signaling hesitation, internal division, and damage control. All of which, to me, says it's only a matter of time before she's back to embezzling taxpayer funds to her cronies in another department in government.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.